But one thing that's really important for us to talk about just from like a programmatic perspective, but also from the student experience perspective is I really thought in the spring we were starting to hit our stride. I was like, oh, we expanded the number of rooms we have, we got structure for the program down. And then like a week later, when the pandemic started, it was kind of like back to square one, kind of figuring out everything that we needed to do all over again. And um, I know that our students, especially the ones that I've worked with the most, have regularly talked about the way that they feel um, unable to do a lot of their homework. I know that families feel cut off from a lot of the rest of the community, especially if they don't live near some of their friends. And I know that it's particularly hard because of things like um, being laid off or like unemployment wages and like a variety of other issues that are outside the context of the students in their schooling that can easily affect the way that they handle and process things. We did this game night for our student counselors over the summer. And we played charades, which was a fun experience just in general. But one of our students, Sylvie, who, let me see if she has her camera on in any of these pictures. No. Well, Sylvia was one of the students that was with us. And I think she gets a lot of the like childcare responsibilities when she's at home. So we're playing charades. I think she had to act out like a snake or something like that. And she does it, but she has like 4 children on her, like as she does it. And it was, her team won because she got bonus points for being able to do it with all of the kids on her. But I mean, that's just an example of our students are participating, but there's like a whole lot of other things going on behind the scenes. And it can feel insurmountable to them sometimes. So the program is, I think, really important because it gives them an opportunity to get the homework support that they need. I think one of the things you'll also see and realize is a lot of our students, especially the newer or more recently arrived students, don't have a ton of exposure to computers either. And I think sometimes there is a gap between people that have used computers for a really long time and people that are just kind of learning it. And as a result of that, we take for granted like understanding things like, oh, there's a minimize button, or like just click on the next tab. Or honestly, in some situations, like physically, how do you like open the laptop? They're things that we don't think of very often because it's things that seem really obvious to us. And those are some of the things that like we'll talk a little bit more about as we move on. But I just want you to kind of keep all of that in mind as you think about the program for the year. Not to mention, when I was making the list of potential students that we could invite to the program from our summer camp and from our program last year, there were about 60 high schoolers. And as you can imagine, that is a lot of students. Just like Andrew was saying with the K-8 program and trying to bring on the elementary school students a little bit later, we're going to start small and grow from there because that adds stability to the program. We're going to be inviting mostly seniors first because they are graduating this year. And then some of the students that have like sought out help and were involved in the program last year when we were doing it online too. So I ask that as we figure all of this out and as we onboard people and as we bring in more mentors so that we can bring in more students, you just be patient with us because I'm sure you all have thought and realized just from transitioning online in a lot of aspects of your life in the last few months, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And there's a lot of things that we have to troubleshoot in the moment. So if you ever have any concerns or you have ideas for ways that we could potentially make things better, please talk to us and let us know, because I would love to hear your input. When we were building this program, we actually built it around the students' input. When we were in person, we were programming a little more heavily around our outcomes that we wanted to achieve through the program. But the students, when we got online, were like, no, we need a lot more help with homework. And we even set the time based off of their preferences. So we'd also like to build your input into it. So please, like I said, just be patient, but also if you have ideas, we'd love to hear them. As far as like what we're trying to do with the program, we're basically focusing on these, I had to count that, 7 outcomes. The first, and I think the one that you'll see we focus on the most, is academic success. We want the students to have the tools that they need to be able to succeed in school. We also want to build college and career readiness, so that the students have a plan for what they'd like to do after they graduate. Students are at a variety of different levels in their English proficiency. Some students plan to go to college but will do it later. Some students want to start working right away because of, you know, their own like needs, or, you know, familial needs and things like that. So there's a lot of different factors that go into it, and we're trying to help meet each student where they are. We want to build a sense of ability to celebrate culture and identity in the students. We want them to feel comfortable expressing themselves and their culture to the extent that they feel comfortable, or the extent that they want to. We want to build social and cultural integration by creating points of access for them for things like conversations or just generally American culture around them. We want to build meaningful community with their peers. We want to promote civic engagement, which is encompassing a few different things, like understanding local and federal governments, understanding the voting registration process, and extending that even further to this idea of wanting to just better their community and the world around them, so that their lives and their families and friends' lives are also better too. So things like community service, or there's something else that I'm blanking on at the moment, but we try to incorporate a lot of these types of ideas. And then generally speaking, one of the things that we got from our survey data before is actually that some of our students have expressed they don't think they'll have the same level of life satisfaction in 5 years. So after they graduate, they don't think they'll be as happy with their life as they are right now. And we wanted to build in like ideas and strategies and ways for helping people cope and have healthy relationships and communicate and all those kinds of things. So when we talk about program-based outcome, these are the things that we're trying to achieve. And from like a daily structure, we basically have 3 days of programming. I think that when Andrew had reached out to you, it had said mostly Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's because every Tuesday and Thursday we'll need assistance with students to help them with homework. Fridays, we're going to have guest speakers, outcome-based activities, and other activities. The reason that we didn't list this in the initial email, the reason we didn't list that in the initial email is because we don't expect to ask for mentors on every Friday. We want to respect your time, and given that we don't quite know how all of those activities are going to look yet, we didn't want to ask you to be there if there's not going to be a role for you to play in those activities. That being said, we would love to have you on any Friday you would like to come, and anything that you would like to be a part of. If you find that you love the program and are like, I want to be there every day, that'd be awesome. Make sure you like take care of yourself and take breaks. But you're more than welcome at those sessions all the time. We just didn't want you to feel like we're taking advantage of your time by like asking you to be there and then not having something tangible for you to be doing. One of the things that we will be doing on those Fridays is alternating our schedule so that we focus on college and career readiness every other week. And then those other outcomes will be focused on the other weeks. One of the staff members from the Career Development Center at Jewish Family and Community Services, who regularly visits our program as a part of that college and career readiness programming, is Sophia. And I'm actually going to turn it over to her just to give like a brief overview of what their involvement is.
Hi guys, I'm Sophia. I am, just to give you an overview of who I am, I work with Andrew, but in different departments at JFCS. We also have Emily on our team. She is our newest member, and she is our AmeriCorps member. So Fridays are going to look like career opportunities and post-secondary education opportunities for our students. So you will also meet AJ. He'll be coming in to talk with the students as well. He's just not available today. But our goal is to let the students know what possibilities are out there. So we talk to them about different trade schools that are available, what trade school looks like, what colleges are available, what CCAC looks like, the types of classes that you can take there, as well as what having a career looks like based off of your interests. We really try to make it as interactive as possible, where the students kind of spitball ideas with each other and with us so that we get to understand what their goals are without them necessarily saying, these are my goals. So we really want to work with the students to try to figure out something that's going to make them A, happy, but B, successful as well. We do a lot of different activities. It is probably going to look a little different this year just because it's virtual. Our goal is to help them with college applications if they're interested, FAFSA if they need FAFSA assistance. Some students, as Mike, I almost said Mr. Mike, you'll probably hear that a lot. Mr. Mike, Miss Sophia, you will all have something before your name. So it's, I have to stop myself from saying it now, even in like professional meetings. There's Mr. AJ, who you will meet. I have called him Mr. AJ in front of our boss accidentally. So you'll just start getting used to that. But, we really want to try to educate the students on as much as possible what opportunities are out there. Our program name at JFCS for the high school program is Educate, Employ, Empower Futures. And that's really what we're trying to do. Just showcase all of the different options available, use those options in a fun, interactive way to get this across. And really just show you what a future can look like as a refugee high school student. That's pretty much it for me.
Thank you, Sophia.
Sure.
All right, so I will take this part over now. We're going to talk about some skills to work with English learners. And so there's two things we want to talk about. There's first just generally working with English learners. And these are things that on this slide, we talked about this for in-person mentoring too, because, it's kind of like you're doing public speaking. You want to make sure that the client can understand you. And I mean, we can't see everybody right now, so I can't ask for a show of hands, but if any of you have traveled to another country and lived there for an extended period of time, or even just for a couple weeks, you feel even if you understand the language and you can read it well, actually hearing it is a totally different thing. And so for a lot of our students, they're still training on that and developing their vocabulary and understanding. And so it's important for us to speak clearly and concisely. Think about the words that you're using. And this is something that you'll be continuing to learn. I'm still learning all the time. What are some words that are more introductory or basic, maybe that they might be more familiar with? That can be helpful. But of course, the responses that you give to the student will inform how they the confidence they have about themselves, and that then will allow them to, if they're more confident, they'll try to speak more, and they'll try new things. And so it's important that using, especially over Zoom, but even in person, using active listening skills like nodding along and reflecting, restating what they said, just to, even if you're just trying to double check or just to show them that you're hearing what they said. That's a really, you want to show empathy with them and feel whatever they're saying, you want to bring that and, show back to them that you understand it. And so it's also important to ask that you ask questions of the student that aren't yes or no. It's often, even for us, when we're, native English speakers and we have an English speaking teacher, it's often we have the urge to just say we understand sometimes, as to not feel the shame of not knowing maybe. And that's especially true when you're in a new language. And so remembering that is important. So instead of asking do you understand that, yes or no, just ask them to restate what you're asking if they understand, just to clarify, okay, do they understand the connection I'm trying to build here between these two numbers, or whatever it might be. And so of course, we always want to give the mentee time to process, because for a lot of them, they're hearing English, interpreting it in their head into their native language, forming a response, and then bringing that back out. So that's still the process they might be going through. Some of them are, pretty comfortable in English. They've been here for 3 or 4 years. And so some of the students you'll hear today, we don't really need to use interpreters with them, but others are still on that, they're still developing. And so I think, Mike, we had interpreters at the program at the past. And I think that's the plan this year as well.
Yeah, we'll have 2 Swahili interpreters to begin the year at program every day. And then when we break into breakout rooms with the students to actually work on their homework, we'll have the interpreters with the students that need the interpretation the most.
Yeah, and so that's what, a lot of like the mentoring that I've been supervising over the summer has been with a lot of like the brand new families. I mean, some kids arrived like February 24th and they never got to go to school before the pandemic. And so, providing mentoring to them, and with very low levels of English, the mentors were often like, they would use Google, that we didn't have interpreters for those sessions. So then they would use Google Translate to just ask basic phrases. That's iffy. Sometimes it works well, but the longer the phrases are, the more inaccurate it is. And so since we have the interpreters at the program, that, you can just raise your hand to ask Mike to hop in and get an interpreter maybe. So that's definitely a resource available to you. And so now thinking about Zoom related, we want to give the mentee time to process everything, but then Mike, if we can go to the next slide now. When we're working on Zoom, we have like the body language is it's less effective. You're not able to like directly point to things on their screen like you are on a sheet of paper when you're working with them, and you're not able to like act something out. And so sometimes, you'll need to direct students to like click or type in a certain place in order to like search for a certain problem, or maybe they just need to refresh the page to help it load again. And, what we've learned over the summer is, like digital vocabulary that's something new. I mean, they might be familiar with the meanings of the words in conversation.
All right, I think Andrew's maybe cut out for a second. So basically, to kind of continue on his thought until he's able to kind of come back, when we're speaking about Zoom and thinking about how to describe things to students, we have to be mindful of the way that we're talking and describing. So
people, and there's like a blue button. So I guess.
Sorry, Andrew,
yeah.
you cut out for a second. Can you summarize what you had just said?
Yes. So all right. So when we're working with students, you don't want to assume that they are seeing whatever you're seeing. They might not be able to read it as well. So even though submit is a pretty short, or join, they're short words, but they might not be reading those immediately. But they are very familiar with colors and shapes. Like those are things that they'll understand pretty much right away. And so by directing their attention to a certain color button or a certain shape, that can be helpful.
So for example, when I'm walking students through how to join a Zoom call, there will be a blue button down in the corner that'll say join. I can say hit the join button, and sometimes I say that first to kind of help orient the students towards like what they should be looking for. And if that doesn't work, then I'll move on to the next thing that says click the blue button. Or if I need to direct them somewhere on screen, if it's in the top left corner, I'll say look for the picture of the house, because there's like a little home button in the corner, and then they'll go up there, and then I'll give them directions from around that. I've noticed sometimes too, when I use words like left and right, students won't always immediately be able to identify which one is which. And I think that could be for any number of reasons, but not the least of which is having to remember in another language which direction is which. So sometimes instead of saying left or right, I might say toward like the picture of, and then whatever that is. Instead of just saying left or right if they don't get it the first time. So for like actually doing homework help on Zoom, you might be like, how does that work? And basically the structure of each day that we do homework is going to be students will come in at around 4 o'clock. And I say around 4 o'clock because there's a really good chance they're not going to be on time. And so we usually get started like right around 4:15. At that point, I will send everyone into breakout rooms, ideally a 1-to-1 ratio of mentor to student. Sometimes if we don't have enough mentors, or if we know that students are working on the same homework, we might pair them up a little bit differently so that two or three students that are working on the same math homework might be working together, especially if there's an interpreter needed for that assignment. And as we invite more students, we'll also increase the number of interpreters that we need for the program and things like that too, and we'll bring them in. But that's like the general flow for the day. So we'll split you into breakout rooms, and then maybe 5-10 minutes before the program ends, we'll close the breakout rooms and bring everyone back into the main room. And at that point, we will do any announcements that we have, and then the closing chant. If we have time today, maybe one of the students that we invite for a student panel a little bit later today will lead us in that. If not, you'll get to experience it on the first day, I'm sure. But while you're in those breakout rooms, the way that we kind of keep track of like what's going on or helping you is we'll try to pop in myself or any of the other staff members, or Dr. Scholes, who is at the program from Duquesne, will hop into the different breakout rooms and sit in with you for a little bit, just kind of see how things are going. If you ever need anything, you can always message me. I'll give you, I don't think I included it in this, but I'll give you my contact information before you leave today. You can always like text me or send me an email or message me and just let me know that you need a little bit of extra support. And one of us will be in as soon as we can. But from like a tangible, actual helping with Zoom perspective, the biggest thing that we have been trying to do is get the students set up so that they can share their screen and have Zoom installed, so that then they're able to actually allow you to like access remote control. So when you click on share screen, which at the bottom of your screen, you'll notice is, hold on, I'll actually move my bar because that's kind of confusing. It is the green button at the bottom of the screen. When you click on share screen, you get this option. If you just click share right away, it'll share your desktop. So basically they'll be able to view everything that you are able to view. Another option is to share your whiteboard. So one of the things that I did earlier when we did our little brainstorm of qualities or ideals or the ways that mentors have impacted you is I was able to make a list. But that can be really helpful if you're doing like math problems or something like that, and you need a little bit of extra space to explain something. But what we want to do first, once we get into the rooms, is ask the students to share their screen with us. For the most part, everyone should know how to do that because we've done it with them a few times already. But if they don't know how to do it, I always just refer to the green button at the bottom, and they can usually find that. And then I tell them to click the blue share button, and then they share it. Once you, oh, I did not include that, my bad. So once you have shared your screen, you should be able to see at the top of the screen a little green bar that says, right now it should say Mike Serrera is sharing his screen. And then there is something that says view options right next to it. If you click on view options, if you are using your computer and have Zoom installed, you should have the option to annotate, and it should bring up a bar that allows you to actually like draw on my screen. If you want to, let me just go back to the whiteboard slide to practice. If you want to, you can actually like just click on the annotate thing and then draw on the screen, just if you haven't used that before and want to see what it looks like. So this is really helpful. Sometimes if students don't know how to get to the submit button or something like that, I will draw big arrows pointing to things and circle it. And then on that little menu bar at the top, if you click, you can click clear, and you can clear your drawings. I'm not sure if you're not the host, if you can clear all drawings. So for instance, if another mentor is in the room with you, I don't know if you can clear everything all at once, but for me, since I'm the host, I can clear all drawings. But when you're in the breakout room, everyone's able to share their screen. Everyone should be able to request remote control and should be able to request, or should be able to annotate. The reason that we do request remote control sometimes is because it's a little bit easier to help students navigate things, or it's a little easier to also maybe help them adjust and understand their spelling or things like that. You can actually go and demonstrate like what you need to do. Certainly, I think just from a best practice and good person perspective, don't be doing anything on the computer that you shouldn't be doing if you have remote control. And also, just generally speaking, if you share your screen to show something with the students, like for instance, the first day of mentoring, the little like icebreaker I'll give for the students to do with their mentors before they get started on homework is play a song that you really like right now to your partner. And if you share your screen, just be aware if you have like sensitive work information or something else up that you don't want people to share, just remember if you share your screen, they're able to see like what's on your screen. So just be mindful of that as you're going to. But to request remote control, you go to that same menu that you did for annotate, and there is a button that says request remote control. It'll give you a little pop-up in the middle that'll have two buttons. If you click request, you'll notice a gray pop-up on their shared screen where they have the ability to, I think it says approve is the button. But once the student figures out how to do that, when you request control, I always just tell them I'm going to request control, and then they approve it right away. So it's just one of the ways that is helpful. And if I don't know if you've noticed, because I have like the picture with all these menus, I keep clicking on up here, and like this is the picture and not like my actual bar. It's confusing. So, all right, and now I have to fix my annotate, clear my drawings. Okay, so that's the first thing, like I said, is screen sharing. The second thing is using that annotate feature. I think those are the two biggest tools that you can use in Zoom to kind of help the students. From just a technology perspective, like I said, sometimes the students don't understand how to like get in their accounts, or like maybe they're in Gmail and they need to access their school email, but like they're logged into their personal email. Like if you don't know how to do those things, you can totally ask for help, but those things come up a lot too, where the students might not know how to do something, and you can just kind of like show them. I always think of this as a great opportunity, even though we wish we weren't in this situation, to help educate the students on how to use the computers more than they would like get that type of exposure otherwise. And one of the first Fridays, I think it's probably the third one, because the first two will be more orientation days. The third Friday of program, I'm going to try to do like very basic computer knowledge, like how to minimize windows, how to switch tabs, like how to bookmark things if you want to bookmark things, that kind of stuff. And if anyone has any ideas or like would like to talk more about that, certainly we can talk about it. But I think that's one of the big things. Sometimes students will lose their link to program and like log in on their phones, or under some circumstances, the school computers don't allow the students to install Zoom. We're trying to figure that one out. But if that's the case, the student will still be able to share their screen with you using the web browser version of Zoom, but you won't be able to draw on their screen or request remote control. So that one might just require a little more patience in explaining like what to click or how to do things. But you can also always like screenshot with your computer, open up the picture, and then share your screen. Or if they show you the problem that they're working on or the question that they're working on, you could always share your screen as a whiteboard, and then you could do the work and figuring things out together on the whiteboard, and then they could always go back and like put in the answer after you're done. They could share their screen. Sometimes we have to get a little creative in our workarounds, but if you come up with like new strategies you haven't thought of, totally let me know, because I think this is like totally a joint effort. And we help make each other better. And then just a more practical homework help tip is we want to focus and make sure that we don't just give students answers. We want to try to make sure that they understand how to get there. So sometimes that means, like, if for instance they have a problem that's like y equals, and if math gives you anxiety, I apologize. If they have a problem that's like x squared plus x plus 5, and they want you to find points, and I'm just making this up right now, so but it's similar to something I helped a student do earlier this week. If it's like this, you could maybe give them an example that's not one of these numbers and say, why don't we do 3 first? And then you can show 3 squared plus 3 plus 5, and then, you know, go each step of the way and walk the student through how you're doing it. And then on the next one, do it with them. So remind them where everything goes. And then on the third one, ask them like to try to lead you in it. And then on the fourth one, don't give them any help, but try to like let them go through. That's really good if there's like multiple things that they need to do. And sometimes it's just a matter of making sure they understand like the foundational concept behind what's going on. But this being a math example brings up a really good point. Not everyone feels comfortable with all of the subjects, and that's totally cool. Don't worry about that at all. I think one of the things I've noticed is if you felt comfortable with it before when you were in high school, chances are you'll probably relearn it fairly quickly. But every once in a while, we always hit like a roadblock where this summer I was helping a student with like point slope form, and I didn't remember anything about point slope form. And when we were going through stuff, there was a couple of us helping. I was zero help like the whole session. Like I was completely useless. When we got to the next section, I was great. But that's okay. And if you're by yourself and you need to help the student, it's okay to say, hey, Mike, we are working on this and I don't know how to do it. Could we get some help? And if we have enough people, I'll send someone in to help you. If we don't, I might switch people around with who they're helping so that everyone feels comfortable with what they're doing. I will try to be as mindful of that as I can as I get to know your preferences and what the students are working on when I assign mentors to rooms. But one thing to just be aware of is as we grow our program, that'll be a little harder to do, because if we have a lot of students and we need to match people up, it might take a little bit longer. So if you get into a room and it's like trigonometry and you're like, nope, just let me know and that's cool. We'll figure it out. And yeah, so that was like the last big point about that. I'm assuming most people have had some experience using Zoom so far, but does anyone have anything they feel particularly nervous about, or do you feel like that kind of makes sense? All right.
Well, just to like help, you know, there's also, you know, if you're feeling particularly challenged or something, or even like, I mean, I remember last year when we were in person, I would be trying to help a student and like, I recognized whatever the concept is, like the theory, but you just need to like Google search it real quick. And that's fine. Just like tell the student, like, wait, like just wait a minute. I need to refresh and learn this again, and they'll wait. And then like also speaking to what Mike said, I mean, sometimes it's like a student needs help figuring out one thing and then like, okay, go away. Like I got it now. I need to do it. Like I want to try it on my own. And that's good. Like you want, that's good. And so then you can just kind of hang out with them. I mean, well, that's something that we'll have to kind of go with the flow. Maybe the kid really doesn't need that much help, but kind of just staying there with them, even when they're not asking for help, is important, because it just is a level of support that they have.
We will be having a few students join us in just a couple minutes. Around 11:30, there will also be some mentors that were with the program last year that'll be joining us. At 11:30, we're going to do a student panel. So if you see some students come in and then you see us like quickly move to a different breakout room, just know that that's because I'm kind of prepping them for the panel. But I think at this point, and here's some nice pictures. At this point, I think Andrew's going to go over a few just like important to-do list items. So